Hello my friends and welcome to another DataBits video. Today's video is going to be in the retro tech category. This Crosley RSD3, it is a 3-inch record player. It's got some cool features and we will go over those together. We're also going to see it demonstrated. We'll play a record both on its internal speaker and via its external output to a Bluetooth speaker. And then we will tear this thing's guts out. I'll take it apart, show you what makes it tick on the inside. Should be fun, so I hope you stay with us. First, let's remove this dust cover, which actually doesn't hinge on the back like the bigger versions do. It just kind of sets in there. But I like the fact that the adapter that you see here has its own little spot back here in the back. I can get it off of here. Here, let's do this. Take that off. So it goes back here, has its own little spot to hold that. And there is a piece here on the top of the lid that holds that in place. So if you turn the thing upside down, the adapter does not fall out. So that's a nice touch. As far as the controls go on this unit, we have an on-off switch here with volume control. We have the turntable platter here with a soft velvety black cover mat on the top, which is glued to it. Again, we have that cartridge mounted and ready to go. We have this pitch control here, which this is the center point. That's 33 1/3, and you can plus or minus it this way, I believe by 5% or so, and get the speed up and down, which works out really nicely because the record that you saw there on the turntable for a little bit was used in another video I did not too long ago about another mini turntable, and that was the General Electric letter writer. And I just made a little label for this guy and put it on there. So I'll play that for you here in a minute. Maybe it'll bring back some memories. So let's flip it over, see what's on the back. So on the back side here, this is all that we have. Got some rubber feet there. And of course, a battery compartment. I'm going to put the most expensive batteries known to mankind in here. These are from Dollar Tree. And, you know, I like buying Dollar Tree batteries because a lot of times I use them in experiments and stuff, and they just end up not getting used for much else. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in there like that. And then I'm going to close up the lid just like that. So it indicates that there's some kind of adjustment here for, what does that say? 33? Yeah, 33 RPM. It says that upside down right there. So that doesn't actually do anything, and I was hoping it would, and I'll explain here in a minute why I wish this turntable also had 45 RPM, because it would be super handy for another retro purchase, or classic, or vintage tech. And here's our auxiliary output, which is also a headphone jack for you, and your 5-volt input using a micro USB connector there. And there's the back of the tone on there. You've got a little bit of a counterweight hanging on the back there, whether it's aesthetic or actually for use of, you know, practical purposes. But speaking of that counterweight, let's check the weight of this tone arm and just see how it comes from the factory. Just how heavy is this? Okay, today we will be testing the weight with this Neotech model NTK018 scale. And just to show you that it's been properly calibrated, I'm going to put this little 5-gram weight on there. And there it is at exactly 5 grams. So let's go ahead and see what this little tone arm and cartridge is going to do for us. We want to put that needle right in the middle. Yeah, right there. Here we go. So it looks like we're hitting at about 4.28 to 4.30, somewhere in there. And that's our weight. So here's an example of a couple of 3-inch records that were released for this product's use. And I've already opened them, of course. So put a little piece of tape on there to keep the lid shut, but you get like an actual sleeve on the inside along with your record and a poster. And this is our 3-inch record. Foo Fighters. I'll play a little bit of that here for you in a second. My second record here would be the Aladdin soundtrack, or from the Aladdin soundtrack, A Whole New World. And this record happens to be blue. So apparently they sandwich vinyl on top of plastic. It doesn't seem apparent that they look like that, or maybe they're all not manufactured that way. But they are 33 1/3 little tiny records. Our first demonstration is this Roswell record. I'm going to go ahead and place it on there with the adapter. If they've made 3-inch records that use the standard spindle in the middle here, I haven't seen one yet. If you guys have seen one, send me a link. But I don't understand why they didn't go with the standard size in the middle here of a regular record versus the size that is exactly the same specs as a 3-inch CD. I'll play that for you here in a second too. But let me show you something here that I noticed, is that the record is printed somewhat crooked. And you can see the grooves moving back and forth a little bit there. So you're going to hear a little bit of wow and a little bit of flutter, but I don't think it's the turntable's fault. I think it's this record. But anyway, here is about 6 seconds of this song being played through the internal speaker of the unit.
Well, I talked about it, carried on, reasons only knew.
And now a stereo playback sample. I have it connected to my longtime favorite Tron smart speaker right here with a built-in tiny subwoofer. And let's take a listen as to what that sounds like. And now the record that should bring back some memories for you is this GE Letter Writer record that I cut with my antique record cutter for the purpose of the video that I made about this particular model record cutter. In fact, it was a tiny record cutter. In any case, let's play a little bit of that and see what you think.
Good evening, Mr. Bond. This is your Commander-in-Chief, and I have an important message for you. Your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to record a flexible record and then send this to your grandmother, who lives in Georgia. That's right. Not very far, but it is way cheaper than long-distance calls. Because in 1967, long-distance calls are extremely expensive. But this is cheap. This is only going to cost pennies. The only problem is there are no recordable CDs in 1967. Whatever shall we do? Well, because there are no CDs in 1967, you're going to have to use these flexible discs from General Electric. Good luck finding them. You very well aren't going to find them because they are as rare as hen's teeth. Oh well. Have a good day. I've run out of space to record on my record cutter. So anyway, you got your mission. This record will now self-destruct. Goodbye.
And my friends, this is the reason why I wish this unit also had 45 RPM as a speed, is because back in the 1960s, Philco Ford introduced these hip pocket records. They're plentiful out on eBay. You can find lots of them. And they are flexible records. You could call them Flexi-Discs if you'd like. sound sheets, as Evitone used to call them. Evitone was a producer of these little records. So you can see that not only does it have the regular size center on it, like on a standard turntable, not this miniature one that's on this one. Not only does it have that, but it's 45. So that's a bummer. So you say, okay, what are some other possibilities that we could have had? Well, Hip Pocket Records also came out with these children's records, and they're just a little bit smaller. I've got Hansel and Gretel, Snow White, and the Pied Piper. So cutesy little stories for children. And like I said, they're smaller in size than the standard Hip Pocket record, interestingly enough. And then there was a little thing called the Talking Viewmaster. So the Talking Viewmaster introduced little records, also about 3 inches. And you can actually play these on the Crosley. I'll play one for you shortly. You can play these on the Crosley, and they play just fine. So there's another example and the final example. But the things that sets these apart is that they have an extra set of holes in the center there. See those? So that would actually help the toy that played these back avoid slippage. And here's the first hurdle we run into when trying to play these little records on here is the center hole is bigger than the one on this little 3-inch guide. So I got out my caliper and I measured the dimensions. So this is about 3.5 millimeters. Hey, you've heard of that measurement before because it's the headphone jack size, right? And then the outside is actually around 7 millimeters. So I went online and I found these things. These are aluminum standoff spacers, also known as bushing sleeve washers. And with that in place, I can just take this record and set it right on the turntable, and it's perfectly centered. Okay. Now the sides have been clipped on this record because it matches the indentations of the GE letter writer. So it had special records that were cut a certain way to keep them from slipping. And speaking of slippage, I have this little rubber mat that I made for this. So I can put my little rubber mat on. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I can do that too. Well, maybe I can. But yeah, rubber mat to prevent slipping with these sound sheets. And let me play you a little bit.
Tricks. One said the magic words, and then there were 5 furry monsters playing at the shore. One went to sail his boat, and then there were 4.
If you find any deep sea cookies, let me know. Avast, me hearties.
I wonder what that means.
Bye-bye, Elfie. Ciao.
I've taken the liberty of removing all of the screws that are necessary for this deconstruction. And you can see here that this is the innards of this particular record player. Here is your main circuit board here. I'll zoom in a little bit there. Let you take a look at that board. There's some capacitors on there and some really cool pluggy things there. So those are, I would say, a modular design. So you could just replace this whole board if something went wrong with it. Just unplug these plugs and off you go. Here's the little motor, and you may have noticed already that this thing's a little noisy. I don't know if it's defective or what its deal is, but it's a little, looks like 5 or 12 volt DC, and it has several different RPMs that it can do. So I would imagine that it could do different speeds. If you look on the bottom of it here, and you know what, if somebody out there has a solution for this, hey, let me know. But I put a small screwdriver in both of these. There's an L right there, and there's an H right there, and I put a screwdriver in there. It did not affect the speed. So either I'm doing it wrong or I need a special tool or whatever. But the interesting thing is this motor just sits in the unit. Doesn't have any screws at all. It just fits into this little slot right here. If I can get it back in there. There we go. So there's where it sits, does its thing. You can see the rear jack panel circuit board there, right in the middle of your screen. You can see the spindle coming down from the turntable, and that fits into this greasy spot right here. And then there's your battery compartment right there. And then there's the back of the speaker right there in the middle of your screen. And then right next to that is the sliding control, probably a variable resistor, right, for that. And then our potentiometer. And speaking of which, here is the volume potentiometer right here, and a little LED indicator light. So yes, that is the internal parts of this Crosley record player. So one important thing to keep in mind is that if you take this unit apart from the bottom side, your belt is going to be disengaged. So the only way to get that back the way it should be is to remove this little ring around the turntable here. Now there is a cover here and a little tiny cover there, and each one has a screw on the bottom. And then the little tabs or covers, which have tabs on them, like you see here, you just kind of move them out of place and remove those. And then remove this ring that exposes the turntable, which you can then pull up. And there's our turntable. And then underneath that, you can see where the turntable goes, and one of the wires that should not be there is hanging out there. So we'll want to fix that. So yep, that's where the spindle goes for the turntable platter, and then here's where our motor appears from the top. And then the belt is a flat belt, and you just need to get a pair of tweezers or something and get underneath that belt. Pull that apart, and then you can re-engage it here. And the belt is back in place, and I can turn it on and demonstrate it working for you. Again, I'm not sure if that motor is supposed to be that loud. Maybe it's not. If it's made cheaply, maybe it is supposed to make noise. I don't know. It seems like that could be done and be completely quiet. For additional demonstration here, I'll play one of these children's records, the hip pocket records. Of course, I've got it all the way up, but this is not anywhere near 45. But imagine if you were a kid hearing this. I think you might have had nightmares for the rest of your life. We'll find out.
There was a family, oh so poor, no food was in the kettle to feed father and stepmother and young Hansel and Gretel.
One morning this bad stepmother said, "Your children must go. We'll lose them in the woods come morn, and we'll have no more woe." They thought the children were asleep as they looked on the stair. They'd find, no doubt, to their surprise, little Hansel hiding there.
Now Hansel was a bright young lad, it's easy to be seen. Next day, each step along the way, he dropped a bright red bean.
Snow White was the daughter of a beautiful and lovely queen. When the lovely queen died, Snow White's father, the king, remarried. The new queen was very mean and vain. The only thing she wanted was to be the most beautiful woman in the land. And every morning she would ask her mirror,
"Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?"
And the mirror would then answer,
You, queen, are the fairest of them all.
In the meantime, Snow White was getting more beautiful with each day that passed.
And in the tradition of small record players, this is my little tiny gramophone or phonograph, however you want to refer to it as, but a little plasticky thing from the 80s. I'll put a link to this video, and you can check it out. Also, I have my tiny TV here, which I made just a short about, a YouTube short. And this thing is really cute. It plays scenes from Jurassic Park only. And I think they make them that also you can put your own videos on, whatever you would like. But, yep, and then I can just turn it off. And that's all I have for you for this video about the Crosley RSD3. I hope you enjoyed it. Please follow me on my social medias, subscribe, share it with a bunch of your friends. And if you see a good deal on one of these, go out and grab one. I think I paid 45 bucks for mine off eBay. And there may be some other good deals on these out there as well. But typically they're pretty pricey, right around 90 bucks or so or more. So anyway, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.